Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I am Larry Raff. I am president of Copley Raff, which is a national fundraising and management consultancy for nonprofit organizations. I'm also the creator of Abacus Major Donor Ask Calculator, which is the host of this webinar. I am thrilled to be able to introduce to you Melissa Kogut, who is a longtime colleague and friend and client of Copley Raff, full disclosure, and a beta tester of Abacus, I might add. Melissa has been in the advancement profession for 25 plus years. She's currently Vice President of Development at Riverside Community Care, which is a $100 million human service and behavioral health organization in Eastern Massachusetts. She's also formerly the executive director of the Chefs Collaborative and of NARAL, Massachusetts. So Melissa comes to us with a wealth of information, of experience and depth of information. So welcome, Melissa.
Hi, everybody.
So the way this will work is we're going to discuss some questions around how personal biases affect what we do in the major donor world and major gift world. And so I'll just get things kicked off by asking Melissa, what factors do you consider when determining major gift ask amounts? What are the things that you put into the stew to come up with a number?
Yeah, this is probably similar to what many of you all do, but we look at their past giving history. We look at donor search to see what their capacity is and what they've given to other organizations. We talk to people who know them to ask their opinion on what an ask amount is, and we assess how involved they are with us. What's the likelihood that they're going to want to make a large gift to Riverside?
Do you think any of those factors, Melissa, reflect some of your own biases? So, for instance, I know other folks who might say, do they have kids in college? Are they getting their retirement? Or does that really matter, given their history of giving to the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I do think about those things. Did they just give a large gift to Riverside? Did they just give a large gift to somebody else? Are they going to be ready to make an even more substantial gift at this point? Do they have other expenses that do they care enough about Riverside? All those things kind of weigh in. I've never asked them for this amount or anybody for this amount. All of those things kind of enter into my own feelings about how much to ask for.
You mentioned the notion of, gee, they just gave a big gift to Riverside. How could I go back to them, right? And in the direct mail world, at least, the saying goes, your best donor is your last donor. So just because you asked them a month ago, it doesn't mean you can't ask now, because they'll often give again because they love you, right? They love the organization. And based on their capacity, whether real or not, based on what just because they may have given a very generous gift 2 months ago doesn't mean that for a new reason or an additional reason, they may step up and do some more. And to me, that, no reflection on you. To me, that's a common bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real common bias. How could they do it again if they just did it?
Exactly. They're going to want to spread the wealth. They're not going to give it all to us, or they might not have enough, or whatever things going through my head.
So, first of all, let me just say to everyone listening that if you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat. I forgot to mention that. Please do, or your perspective on a matter. Webinars are limiting, so we have to do it via the chat. So all the ways you go about coming up with a number, do you then talk to your team or talk to volunteers about what you've come up with? Do you get a reality check?
Absolutely. There's a number of people on our team that I would run it by. Depends on who's making the ask. A lot of times our CEO is making the ask if it's a very large gift. Um, I talk it through with them and their comfort level in making the ask. I might ask a board member who maybe they made the introduction. What do they know about their giving history? We work with a consultant. I would definitely talk about it with her and kind of walk through all the reasoning. We want to really come close to the right amount, not too much and not too little.
The Goldilocks.
Exactly.
Huh?
And we're never going to nail it perfectly. At some point, we just have to make our best estimate and go for that. One thing I've learned, I used to think, oh my God, they said yes too soon. We didn't ask for enough. But when they say yes, it may mean we just asked for the right amount and they're filled with good feelings saying yes, and we can always go back for more. So I don't have that anxiety anymore. Oh, we didn't ask for enough. Really, I want to get to the right amount and not necessarily have a negotiation. The ideal for me is, yeah, I'd like to do that.
You talked about who's going to be in the room doing the ask. And biases come into play there as well. Because sometimes you think, well, if we're talking to a couple, maybe we shouldn't have more than 3 people. We don't want them to feel like they're ganged up on. On the other hand, maybe they'll think they're really important if there's 4 people talking to them. Those are the kinds of things that, as a major gift officer, you need to balance, right? You have a great story about a family who surprised you, where you were pursuing them against all odds, particularly your boss. Why don't you share that story? Because I think it's really
Yeah.
instructive.
We had a donor. We have a donor who's been supporting us for the last 8 years or so. They came to us through an introduction by a board member, and they had a very, very specific interest in one of the services that we offer. And they made a gift of $10,000. That was their first gift. We knew that they had capacity to make $1 million gift, but I could never interest her and her husband in any of the other aspects of the work that we do. And my boss said, you know, it's not worth our time. They're never going to give anything more than what they're giving. But I continued to meet with her regularly and periodically offering opportunities to support us in a significant way. And finally, we found something. We were building a new building for the service that she was interested in. And I asked her for $100,000 and she agreed to 50,000. And I thought, okay, that's great. You know, at that time I was also playing with Abacus, and saw through the series of questions that Abacus walks us through that she and her husband had capacity to make a $2 million gift. And then in fact, through this sort of objective tool, she was really conveying interest in what we're doing. She met with me every year. She did support this building. And coincidentally, about this time, she and her husband came to us and said they were looking for an organization to make $1 million gift. And similar focus to what they've been interested in, and really exploring whether we were the right organization. And in fact, we did come up with a match for them, and they have pledged $1 million. It's a great story for a variety of reasons. One being that Abacus really confirmed that they were ready. They were ready to make that gift and that amount. So I'm very happy to share that and to have had that experience with this donor.
It's a wonderful story. Yeah, it's always great to have the chance to say "I told you so" to the boss every now and
Exactly,
then.
which I did get to do. So
And by the way, your boss was displaying her biases.
yes, she did, because the husband of this donor sort of lost interest early on. And so one of the biases was, well, he's the decider in this family. He's the male part of this partnership. And she was very clear that she was able to make this decision on her own and continue to convey interest. And we did, I didn't lose hope. I continued to talk with her, and I knew she had capacity. I knew she was interested in the organization, and it was worth continuing to spend the time.
And finding that sweet spot of the things that they're very interested in.
Yep.
And that sounds like that turned everything around by having that opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, Abacus really gave me confidence to continue, because all of the sort of objective measures were there. And so I just continued to
Soldier on.
Yeah, soldier on. Exactly.
Well, thanks for mentioning Abacus. It's a, we're trying to cut the bias out of the entire process and coming up with a number, because it's, as we've been talking now, it's laden, the whole process is laden with potential biases that could short circuit a process. And to that, do you ever, when you're sort of getting ready to go, sort of reflect back on, what are some of those biases that might be in play here that are affecting your decisions?
Yeah.
As a business person, and I think as a professional, all of us, everyone listening, every now and then sits back and says, okay, what am I missing? What I'm feeling something, where is that coming from? And trying to get to the root of it.
One thing that comes to mind is that the biases cut both ways. There's one donor that had been on my list for years, because I had been told by somebody who worked with her, she really can make a large gift to Riverside. You really should be cultivating her, stewarding her, all of that. And she gives about $250 a year. So I had a bias sort of the other way, that, oh, this person definitely needs to be on my list as somebody to be spending time with. And I walked through the very practical questions that Abacus outlines, and saw that, oh, she really isn't demonstrating. She's not demonstrating the kind of signals that would lead me to really believe that she could make a large gift. Capacity, not just capacity, but her level of involvement with the organization. As much as I tried, she really was clear, I'm just giving this. She doesn't come to events, et cetera. And it sort of gave me the confidence to take her off my list. This is an example of a bias in the other way.
Yeah, I love it. So it's a way for you to keep your portfolio tight with real live opportunities, and making that hard to, we all, we're in this business, I think, because we're all hopeful and optimistic, and gee, if only I had one more shot at this person, maybe I can get them to, do this or that. But having some basis for moving someone off your portfolio, it's a hard decision, but biases are at play doing that. But
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a grenade into this whole conversation.
Oh, no.
And tell a story that has a very different kind of genesis and model. I was vice president at Goodwill Industries in Boston for development before I became a consultant 20 plus years ago. And we were starting a campaign, Quiet Phase, and a volunteer, a donor who gave $1,000 to direct mail. I called him up hey, gee, why did you give $1,000? I'd love to meet you. Tell me your story. And we got friendly. He came in and he wanted to help with the campaign, and who do you know who's philanthropic and wealthy? And he knew the people who started for New Englanders the Christmas tree shops, and a couple, and he used to sell to them. He used to make picture frames, and he's known them since their first store. And he arranged a meeting within 5 days with this couple, and before I even had a case for support fully written, we met with them, and I saw the love in the room between these three people. And I just sort of stepped out of the picture, though I was in the room, realizing this is what's going to make it happen. And I simply asked them if they would be willing to consider a lead gift to our new campaign. And they said yes. And we arranged for a visit 3 months later, and the volunteer donor was there. And we asked them for a high six-figure gift. They had never donated to the organization. They employed two of our trainees in one of their stores. And that's all they knew about Goodwill. But the tour brought tears to their eyes. And between having the board chair and the CEO and their beloved friend in the room, we decided to take that chance. And we got a new board member in the process as well, because Doreen agreed to join the board. So I guess you could say my bias toward the depth of that relationship was what propelled me to break all the rules that we get trained on, and to go with what I saw unfolding in front of me as the depth of a relationship that I knew and thought would carry the day, and it did. And I'm sure everyone has stories like that. They're definitely there. The other bias I'm finding with advocates, and I'll tell everybody on this call in a moment what that's about. But sometimes advocates comes up with an ask recommendation that the gift officer feels uncomfortable about. Right? They're not used to asking for that much money from someone, right? So their bias or their lack of experience or the nature of their experience has them reactive to an objective recommendation. Any thoughts on, and I know I'm laying this on you out of left field, but it's any reaction to that? Because I'm finding that to be an interesting reaction from some folks, where the recommendation is a reasonable one, but they're very reactive to it.
Yeah, I mean,
sort of like your boss,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you ask a number of people what you think the ask amount it should be, you're going to come up with probably a lot of different amounts. And unless there's something sort of structured to look at, sort of walk through to be sure you're not giving too much into the bias, you're leaving it up to your own personal whims. So at Riverside, this donor is giving the first $1 million gift to the organization. And one of the things we're really excited about is that we get to tell people about that. And our hope is that people will see Riverside as worthy of $1 million gift. I don't know that we would have necessarily asked for that before. We haven't. So that's an example of our own sense of worthiness. And we want to convey that to ourselves and outwardly.
And you cross that bar. I call it institutional self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how could
Makes so much
how
sense.
could Riverside ask for $1 million, right? Now you can. Now the level of your self-esteem is you've landed a number of mid six-figure gifts and seven-figure gift now that changes your confidence in
Yeah,
asking for that kind of money.
absolutely. Yep.
And it's a good segue. I'm going to segue into a example that I want to share with folks. Let's get this right. I did some research. I've done some research over the last 10 years where I've had the opportunity to be in front of more than 400 gift officers, fundraisers. And I gave them two scenarios, one for a small donor and one for a large donor. 21 questions each. Over 10 years, same questions. And I collected all their data. I'm a geek that way. So I just collected all the responses. And I asked them, how much would you ask for the small donor and the large donor? As you can see on the screen here, for the small, the responses range from $15,000 to $250,000. And for the large donor, $50,000 to $3 million. You think there's bias among fundraisers?
I love that.
This actually was the driving force for me to come up with some tool, some way to cut through all this and come up with a rational, realistic number for an ask given a set of variables. This range is just mind-bogglingly profound in my view, coming all fundraisers over the years, and so I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege and introduce the group to a quick overview of Abacus. Because as we talked about, it addresses the bias, takes the bias out. We all know that wealth capacity estimators are sometimes a little wonky, and they come back with numbers that seem pretty odd, even given our biases or not. When you have enough information, analysis paralysis, and then having that confidence of going into an ask and not feeling like you're shooting from the hip. When you're putting a number on the table. So what does Abacus do? It is bias-free. There's a smart wizard that pulls you through 6 pages, 21 questions. Melissa knows this. She's been using it. And it gives you an ask readiness score, which is here. Do you have the answers to enough of the most important questions? Here is an aspirational ask amount. It's 39,000. You would round it to 40,000. And here's the pledge goal. Here's what you can realistically expect. Ask 40 to get 30. And we've been collecting the information. No surprise. This also can be used to value your donor pipeline and to serve as a planning tool for campaigns. If you're thinking about going into a campaign, adding up all of the pledge goals will get you to a very accurate place, because right now, our accuracy for the goal against actual pledges is off by only 2%. And again, I've been working on this particular aspect for over 5 years. People can go to donorabacus.com and get a week's free trial to kick the tires on the calculator. You can do it all you want. Here's just some quick data. Actual pledges, Robert S. Here's the actual pledge and Abacus's goal and ask. And look here, the wealth assessment number came in very low. Here, the wealth assessment came in very high, the bottom range. And then here's the aggregation of all of the data we have thus far, where in actual pledges, median is around 50,000. We're 2% off at 49,000. But look at this. The wealth assessment low end of the range on the whole is 250% above actual pledges when we put all the data together. So the important story here is that for many people, the wealth assessment tool, the philanthropic capacity estimate is sort of a very important number that people sort of cling to. And I'm going to recommend you not do that for the reasons I just showed you. We use one number of the 21 questions. Only one of those has to do with philanthropic capacity, because what's important is the donor's behavior with your organization. Their giving history, how they're engaged, do they come to your events, do they know people on your board, are they a board member, and so forth. Those are the things that they're unequivocal. They're either on the board or they're not. Their giving history is their giving history. They either attend your events or they don't. There's no fudge factor here. There's no place for bias. Either they do or they don't. Are they friendly with one of the people soliciting them or are they not? You know this to be true or not. Asking for major gifts is art and science, and certainly getting to the point of the ask is a lot of art, right? And those biases can influence you. But then you need to get down to the data in order to come up with a number and not let your biases get in the way. I know I've been talking a lot, but I want to do one final quick story, and that is a client of ours in a campaign, calculator said ask for $100,000. And the executive director and the board chair go to the home of the donor, and they realize the home is sort of not really up to date. The kitchen's really outdated, and they started getting cold feet and decided through signaling that they were going to ask for $50,000. And during the course of their conversation and showing the gift chart of the gifts that have been secured thus far, the donors volunteered a $100,000 pledge, as predicted by Abacus. The executive director and the board chair's biases about how these folks were living and the nature of their house could have left $50,000 on the table if they had asked for 50.
That's a great story.
It's so important to divorce yourself of such things. Again, anyone have any comments or questions? Throw in the chat, please. Please do. Melissa, any closing remarks that you might have?
No, except I will say that using Abacus has made me more disciplined in my approach to who gets into my portfolio and strategy. And I've really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun to use. I've enjoyed using it.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you. Again, it's donorabacus.com. Please visit, sign up, try it for free. And thank you for attending. I'll be sending a video of this to everyone tomorrow. Melissa, thank you very much for your friendship and camaraderie. Bye, everyone.